And Dr. Mesan Maugbe is Executive Director of the Center for African Elections Media Monitoring Index. Welcome to the courtroom.
Thank you very much.
We will try and look at the media and what is currently going on. But let's begin from here. Have we done what we are supposed to do as a media?
I would say yes. The Ghanaian media has been very active. It's done its best, but there is still room for improvement. But I must say that anytime we're looking at how effective the media has been, we tend to zero into the media itself without looking at how the Ghanaian media as an organization and then as practitioners has been sandwiched between certain currents in this country. One of the currents is political currents. We also have the business or economic current. All these things affect how news is disseminated. But gradually, it's even affecting the construction of information by our media practitioners.
Right.
But it's something that can be dealt with. We can do that. I think it's a time that business should also play a very critical role in assisting the media to play its democratic role in this country. It is not only the media alone. It is the same with the government. No matter what government we have, either His Excellency Mahama or His Excellency Kufuor or His Excellency late Atta Mills, every government has a role to play, because media is an extension of the society and at the same time an integral part of that society that it finds itself in. So if a media finds itself being to some extent sandwiched between forces that it finds it difficult to unravel itself from, then it affects even the type of news we consume,
we send out,
we send out, and the type of news staple we consume as citizenry in this country. But on the whole, the media in this country is doing well.
What would you say are some of the challenges that you have seen with the media in coverage of this particular election petition case?
Yeah, I would say the media is doing its best. However, in terms of live broadcasting, we are all watching it, but the media has another role to play in adding value to that, in redigesting it for the citizenry. But the media hasn't been very effective in this direction in terms of its ability to deconstruct some of the technical languages being used. I mean, you go out there and you do a radio maybe interview. What is the meaning of respondents, affidavit, petitioners? I mean, you'll find that many people on the street doesn't really understand these terminologies. And so this is where one will expect the media also to go a bit far on that. And then on the other hand, it also brings into question or reawakening of the media houses in this country that time has come to engage legal news correspondents. Now, we've sent practitioners to the courtroom. They are journalists.
Right.
But are they legal practitioners? And I think we have to create the room for legal practitioners having LLB plus BA journalism from Ghana Institute of Journalism or wherever. And I think this combination, they can even be a standby. If even roping them into the daily routines is going to be very expensive.
Is the media industry attracted enough to pull people with LLBs into their fold? I mean, in terms of remuneration and all that.
No, I think the media has the muscle to do that. It's rather about where is the media organization, how are they laying the importance on their news values, or that is the news sources. When these things are penciled out properly, I think the media should be able to organizations should be able to do that. And then there is also selective remuneration. The media has to do that. How many of the media houses has even got medical correspondents? We don't have these things. So when there is even a cholera outbreak, we only report it from the journalistic point. But you need, if you look at Gupta with CNN, Gupta is the medical correspondent, when it comes to issues relating to even recently Boston issue. He was the one who was actually explaining, and then the fertilizer outburst and all that, that explosion, the chemical, he was able to analyze it. But can we do that? But Ghana, we have got the intellectual capacities. We have good medical practitioners here. We have journalists here. So it's just a matter of combination. Perhaps it's also a challenge to the training institution to create a room for certain people with certain specialities to come and have maybe a top-up program of 2 years. Media houses can even say they will foot that bill, for a medical practitioner, for agriculturalists, for economists, for politicians and all that. But we don't have that. So I think it's a challenge now. We are all experiencing that.
What is happening now is really exposing the media to some of these things.
Yes, what is happening now, exactly so. It's exposing the media that, look, don't you think you would have, it would have been very effective if we had a legal correspondent for Radio X or Radio Y or Radio B or Radio Z. I mean, these things has come. So as much as we're looking at how the media is covering, we should also, I look at it as not as a failure on the part of the media organization, but it's a challenge that we need to address as a nation. Because if we don't have these special people or special brains or faculties, then it becomes very difficult to report effectively on some of these issues.
Does it go to affect the media's contribution to developing democracy if we find ourselves not in a position to be able to properly do some of these things?
I would say to some extent, yes. Let me situate this in something we just experienced when the Iranian president was coming. If you look at the way certain media practitioners look at the whole thing without actually situating it within the parameters of the foreign policy of this country. So as a media practitioner, if you don't really have access and a credible information and a vast knowledge of the policy framework of the our foreign policy issues, then how would you then be able to situate it? So if we look at it, it was actually very stereotypical in the reporting that we had, to the extent that we also, there was an engagement between the Israeli ambassador in this country and a media practitioner. And then her Honorable Hannah Tete came in and even asked the media practitioner that, are you a Ghanaian? That was what the minister asked the media practitioner.
That lack of understanding.
Very good. So we need to go beyond. We need to go beyond employing BA journalism, but also having certain people at the peripheries whom media organizations should always fall on. You need to really be very accurate in your reportage. That is also one of the ethics that every media house seeks to really adhere to. How can you achieve the ethics of the trade if you don't have the right professionals? I'm not saying right professionals in terms of the media practitioners hasn't got that, but do we have somebody who has done international policy at a higher level? And then a combination of that and journalism. These are the people we need. If we cannot engage them full time, let them be, ready to comment. So these are some of the challenges that we are facing.
The opportunity to allow the media to do a live coverage of what is happening. Is this the chance for us to get out of wherever we've been sitting and begin to develop ourselves to the extent that there's a case like this in court and a journalist can simply go in and report accurately. Is this the opportunity?
Yeah, it is opportunity. I mean, it is a very good opportunity. That's why I use the term, it's an awakening for all of us. For instance, you realize that the media practitioners that goes to the court, most of them doesn't even have access to the full understanding. No, I'm not talking full understanding in terms of the English language,
right, but
in terms of the legal confinement that such journalists or many of them find themselves in. So this is the time that either we, and unfortunately you find many practitioners going to do law, but after the law they hardly come back
to the media.
They don't come back to the media, you know, but it's perhaps because we are not wooing them to come back. You know, there should be something beautiful on the table, if I'm putting that in quotes, to actually bring them back, and in that sense we would then be able to touch on this. But consistently you realize that it affects the fullest dissemination of information to some extent, and you realize that lack of that has led us to be using certain legal spokespersons as our news sources, and which sometimes degenerates into other, just the politics of it. You know, but I think
so the journalists cannot explain the legal intricacies of the what is happening, so would have to fall on.
You have to fall on
someone with a legal brain.
Very good.
And then the color the person wears becomes the issue.
That is it, because already there are two colors competing in our Supreme Court now. In the courtroom there are two colors, and our role is to have the neutral color that will withstand each of them, you know. But you realize that the moment that color passes through your medium, it is seen as that media organization who is projecting that, whether you like it or not, you know. So this is where we have to really sit up again. I think it's a managerial challenge facing media organization in this country, considering the challenges they face. I must say that the media houses in this country are facing tremendous economic challenges. One is due to their own, perhaps, organizational objectives, and at the same time it is also due to the structures of the economy, which is also affecting that. But whichever way we look at it, the time has come for us to get specialities in certain areas, to be commenting on other issues. If you ask me to comment on economic per se, I wouldn't be able. I can only look at economy from a media perspective. I can look at democracy from a media perspective. I can look at agric from the media perspective. I can look at culture from media perspective, because I'm comfortable with the media. But what are we comfortable in? Are we comfortable in everything, but in delivery we deliver scanty? I think this is the question we have to ask.
And in this environment, in this situation that we find ourselves, can the consumer then rely on the media to get an understanding of what is happening?
Well, if you look at the media landscape we have today in this country, the media is playing that role of actually acting as a source for the entire nation, because we are now experiencing where people report the first point of call when there is an issue is even the media house. You know, so that's why it's difficult, or it will not be appropriate to tag the Ghanaian media as not doing well, because if they haven't done well,
even if we're not doing well,
but it hasn't. The media might not be doing well in certain aspects, just like we're looking at.
The fact that people are coming to us, is that enough to say that, well, you're doing well?
At least to some extent, it means that the media is acting or playing the role of acting as a social bridge for the society. So you give the media 100% for that. But when it comes to maybe critical business reporting, I would say I will give the media 50%. The media is not doing too well. when it comes to critical business reporting in this country. The media is rather acting as a business public relation entity for businesses in this country.
There's nothing critical about what we tell from that point.
No, there hasn't been over the years. There hasn't been. You hardly even find business reportage in this country referring to business analysts. You hardly. If you do a content analysis, you realize that you're going to get maybe 30% referrals to business analysts. So based on what do we want prospective investors to engage with businesses? We don't know. We don't know. It's more or less of a PR we are doing on behalf of businesses. And I think if we really want to go further, then some of these things we need to look at it.
After 20 years, of course, the media, like our democracy, has gone through that kind of turbulence. And after 20 years, would you have expected we would have gotten to a level where we could be pegged on the same level?
It's not something that can be measured on block to block, but we need to look at the various pigments in these blocks. And then when you do that, you realize that no, the Ghanaian media has scored a point in terms of democracy. I mean, the media in this country has brought this country far. The democracy we are enjoying today is 100% also due to the role, an effective role, the critical role the media has played. Then when you move to that, in terms of agric, the media hasn't helped at all in promoting agric in this country, because you cannot have democracy when food security issues are not addressed. But you realize that the media in covering business entities in this country, agric gets the least coverage. Why? Because agric is not paying. So then, do you blame the media? You can't blame the media, absolutely, because they have costs to address. So this is where business and government, and I think there should be even a forum where media organization needs to engage government, because we are growing as an industry. What are some of the parameters that government can issue to actually allow media to flourish? You cannot talk of media flourishment to be at the same scale of the international and not actually contributing to its engine growth. And it's not happening in this country. We heard that there's a media fund. I think it's time we go beyond the media fund. Is there going to be even certain tax breaks? Tax break for media houses that has taken it upon themselves to push agric, to push sanitation. Look at some of the news from the bites that sometimes, even when you're at the dinner table, sanitation from TV3, you cannot even continue having your meal. You know, what are we doing to support such media houses? And then you go to radio, you find the same issues. I think there could be even tax breaks for some of these media houses for pushing certain important agenda in this country.
In taking you back to the court case, now, with what we have done so far as a media house, when the substantive case started, from radio to the print to the TV, have you seen what you want to see from us?
I would say yes, to some extent. This question or this discussion brings us to, or it dovetails into what we just discussed earlier on, that the media has actually done its part. There hasn't been, in terms of framing, the way the media has been framing the courtroom activity is also a bit worrying. This morning, a media house used the word boring over 6 times, that the courtroom today is very boring. I mean, this is very stereotypical in terms of what has been the expectations of media practitioners then. Are we expecting to see hot exchanges, That is not what democracy is about. Democracy is about exchange of ideas, and that is why we have a court. I mean, what the media should have been worried about is to go to court today and the media being barred from coverage. But to say that the courtroom today has been very boring, and the same network was saying that it's not even nice for TV, neither is it nice for radio. So now my question is, Ghanaian media practitioners, how do you want to frame? What are we expecting? Are we
exchanges?
Cross-examination in itself should not be seen as a banter, as others were putting that maybe some papers will say, or Baumia is in the box, and all. We need to be very mindful of the language we use. And I think the Supreme Court has done as well as a country by giving us that open platform. But now I think if we are not careful, because the way you frame an event can add certain unexpected value to that event. And then outsiders will start looking at it. And then we'll even start questioning the integrity of the Ghanaian media as upholders of democratic principles. If you don't see, for instance, hot exchanges and cross-examination, and you define it as boring, then I don't think it's something very good for the media to be doing that. And then we shouldn't forget that I think perhaps stereotypically we've been used to hot exchanges, perhaps we've been watching them on film, but we forget that it's been edited for our purpose. So if you see somebody sipping through documents, I think the media could have done that well. Today there has been a lot of validation going on
of the document.
I mean, this is very beautiful to say validation or auditing of documents that have been brought by petitioners or by respondents and all that, but to break it down, and that is what stereotypes do. They really pick the various disparities and put them together as one tangible, and that was what we heard today. And I think it's something we need to quickly refrain from that.
Do we risk running into some danger from the Supreme Court because of the way we are reporting what is currently happening?
Yeah, for instance, we have started looking at the language the media is using to frame the court, and this is one case. And then also on the other front pages of the print media, it was also not very appetizing, so to say. We have to be very sensitive. I always say that when it comes to media objectivity is about the difference between facts and values. The courtroom is projecting facts to us, but as journalists, what are the value role that are expected of us to hold this country together? Because the moment the content move away from the courtroom to the media circles, and we are not careful, and we add on ethical, let me use the word here, on ethical media values to it, like boring and banter, like in a box, and no, it's not about that. It's not about box here. It's about a country trying to establish the truth. And what is going on is actually the fundamentals of the fabric of all the ingredients that hold this country together. So it's not something that should be really degenerated into hotness and coldness at all.
And of course, I'm still talking to Dr. Mesan Malgui, the Executive Director of the Center for African Elections and Media Monitoring Index. So we're trying to take a closer look at the media's reportage so far of what is happening there, the election petition case at the Supreme Court, and 1:30 thereabout will be getting back to the Supreme Court to follow up proceedings. The court currently is taking a short break. Now, let me come back to Dr. Malgui. Now, the media's work and the way we do our things, society, consumers, is it because the consumer want this? The kind of situation that the consumer wanted. action. That is why the media is pushed to do that, or we simply are lost as to how to do the right thing.
I think it's you hear other schools of thought, buying into what you're saying, but I think we need to go a bit beyond that. I don't think what we are expecting or what we are consuming as a society is our expectation from the media. Not at all. We expect more from the media, but just like the Pavlov theory, consistently you've been giving us a certain format of news staple, so we don't know X or Y. There are people who tell you that I don't listen to any Ghanaian media. I go to BBC, I go to CNN or Al Jazeera. Then what is really unique there? And then I don't think that you have Ghanaian media practitioners who some of them went to the same schools these people even went outside in their various countries, either in US or in Europe. But why is it that we are not able to really push beyond the limit? There are certain factors that needs to be considered, and we don't seem to be looking closely and critically to these factors. One of the factors is business. Business is not assisting too, and then the media houses themselves. I think they've been enjoying the comfort of Ghana.
They're very comfortable in their zones.
Yeah, that's it. But it's time we have to move beyond Ghana. Now you have talented.
As long as the consumers are happy with you, you want to stay where you are.
But yes, but then you're talking of business sustainability. If we are not careful, one day Viasat is taking a bit of your viewership. Who knows what is coming next? The DSTV is there, So you have the talented kids. I would like to see the West Africa talented kids. How is TV3 ready to go beyond that? You have the muscle. It's just about taking the risk. And when you do that, you can imagine the type of adverts you're going to get. So when you get your apron tied to home business entities, your anxiety level is always so high that you don't have anything to hang on to. That is the other aspect. And the other aspect too is the way media to some extent has aligned itself to political ideologies. There hasn't been anything wrong for practitioners believing in certain political ideologies. But if you have a media house that is critically known for that, and then I would say that there has also been social censorship. What do I mean by social censorship? You might find yourself as a media practitioner with a particular media house that is known to be championing the cause of X or Y party. You might not be part, but because you have worked there before, even when you tell people that, well, I was only working, they hardly, want to trust what you're telling them. And this is where political ideological tanks in this country needs to appreciate some of the challenges media practitioners have to go through in this country. And sometimes you pity our practitioners. They are so sandwiched between which is also in theory it says that news is being shaped by the political economy factor. One is the politics, one is the economy. So I think there should be a round table one day to critically look at some of these things, and then we will be able to go forward.
We'll be going back to the courtroom in about some 8 minutes. That is if the Supreme Court will stick to the 1:30 period expected for them to go back. But let's try and see if we can wrap up now. What is going on? And in the next few weeks, can it in a way reshape the way the media reports on legal issues? Now, let's assume that this case should run for about 8, 9, 10 weeks. Can it in a way reshape the way we do things, especially reporting on issues that has to do with the law?
Yes, it's definitely going to shape that. For us sitting here and even critiquing the framing aspect of the proceedings, not to encouraging practitioners not to use phrases like boring or not nice and all that. I think after this, we're definitely going to see a change, and we're also going to see even within the organization itself that we're not going to wait as a country to start asking ourselves where our special agents for setting special coverages. So definitely we're going to see a change. But I must also say that the whole process is absolutely positive for this country, no matter which side the person might stand. But it has rather enriched the investor confidence in this country. For instance, every investor is not likely to deal with a partner whose environment has weaker institutions.
Right.
But what we are saying, so I think we should really pat the shoulders of the Chief Justice of this country and her team for allowing this to be broadcast live. Many were of the view that it was meant for a malicious intent. I don't think so. It's plus, and we should encourage it. And others are also saying that it's likely to affect productivity. No, news is not consumed absolutely. News is consumed through selective processes. So any recipient definitely has to weigh productivity output and listening or watching that broadcast, live broadcast. But if we are not careful and then we say it's affecting productivity as since Friday or Saturday, it has started coming up, I don't think it's affecting productivity in any way.
So people are living what they're doing and watching. I think that is the point where they're coming from.
Yes, but then who is to measure productivity anyway? It is a producer himself or herself. And then we should also not forget the fact that society is fluid. It is the same way media is fluid. So as society flows in its fluidity, news or media should also be allowed to do same. That is why when you guard the media and you expect society to flow, it doesn't flow. Because the fluidity in the society has to flow with the content fluidity in the media itself. But when you don't allow the two to work together, you're going to have a challenge. And I think this is why, to some extent, the learned people in this country have realized that the media, you just have to leave them. But there should be guidelines. And National Media Commission has numerous guidelines, the GJA, the GIBA, and all that. So these things should go on. But I must say that it has added investor confidence to this country. And then also, critically for even the president in power, assuming whatever happened, either for Nanado or the president in power now, the outcome
or for our institution,
the electoral commission,
the
judicial, these are powerful institutions. Not the word powerful might even be too strong, but these are important institutions that only stands on public trust. And we did an analysis during the biometric issues, and the public mistrust in the system was so high negatively against the EC. We did a presentation of that. They saw it, and so these proceedings, the open and live broadcast, has actually taken off that dark veil of approaching some of these institutions as biased. I mean, no one can say that. No one. And it's a plus, and I think we should jubilate as a country, no matter what the outcome is going to be.
The live broadcast of the hearing, what would have been lost if it was not there?
Oh, if it was not there, imagine even the strong room. Maybe few of us who had the privilege to watch the documentary actually knowing what the strong room is all about during the last 2008 election. But assuming we haven't had the access, You know, if you don't have access to information, you grope. You grope for the information. Information might be so big like the elephant, but because you are groping, you hold the tail, and then you present it unethically as the truth. So now, society actually can survive on social, political truth. And one of the truths Her Excellency Chief Justice has given us as a nation today is you can trust your institution. And then I think it has also allowed the citizenry to actually be part. You might not see us directly, but indirectly we are part. We are part of the processes. And it's like we casted the vote, so we have the right to see how the engagements around these votes that we casted are dispensated, and exactly what we have been given. So for me, it's absolutely very beautiful for our country, for our democracy, and then the trust in public institutions.
Despite the fact that a lot of man hours will be spent around the process, if it should go on and on and on.
You cannot await truth in hurriedness. Truth comes with sacrifice. It comes with love for patience. And I think that is what is happening. We heard His Excellency former President, may he so rest in peace, that the wheel of justice grinds, but it grinds slowly. And that is what we are seeing. So no matter how long it's going to take, if we are able to wait for another 4 years to go and cast vote, so who should come and tell us as electors? And I think this is where media, I don't think the Ghanaian media will even allow it to be gagged or to be prevented from this coverage. We might not know what might have gone on, but I'm sure media advocates in this country might have played a role in this live broadcast in this country. And it is a plus for us. And it's giving us an ownership in the Supreme Court
of the process,
and then of the institution, not just the process, but it tells us that we as Ghanaians have ownership, we have stake in these institutions, and then the institutions has also played back to us. So what we are experiencing now, what I will call the political talk back, is a citizenry is talking back now. Formally, they talk back to us. They gave us a verdict, and citizenry is questioning that verdict. So it's a talk back process, and every democracy without the element of talk back in it is bound to fail. So based on this, you can say that the democracy in this country has come to stay, and it will stay forever.
And if you look at what is happening, the local media is deep in it, trying to be part of the process every step. Do you see the international media not really interested in what is happening, but waiting for the outcome?
I think, international media, the way they work, prior to this, we saw a very heavy coverage that the opposition was going to court. They gave us that. That is the live broadcast. Now, it's being broadcast live. And the way Western media works, it broadcasts live. There are various avenues, even their listeners or viewers can have access to this information. So what is new again about it? What the juicy part of it for news value will be the outcome. So not really seeing the international media playing an active role doesn't mean that they are not interested. They show a very keen interest during when they were filing the petitions at the court. We had even broadcasts on issues on that on BBC and all that. But now I don't think we will see their lenses hovering around here. But I think the day the verdict will be passed, that is when we are likely to see the international media. But it should not be taken that they don't have interest. They do have interest.
The issues of African elections and what has happened to Ghana, 92, 2013, we'll hear, is the African election becoming an avenue where the opposition would always want to say that it has not been free and fair?
Yes, I know you might be saying this based on certain precedents.
We have seen the Kenyan
example and all that. But the question is, citizenry can never be taken for granted. They cannot be taken for granted for a point. So I don't think consistently any opposition without any case would like to go to court. But if oppositions are going to court, we should always allow them to go to court. I am of the view that what we are experiencing is a plus for our democracy. I mean, if we don't allow them to go to court, we don't know what else could we expect. But we also have to look at the factors before elections in Africa. One of the factors is institutions should tend to listen to various stakeholders during the pre-election in terms of issues they might have with certain technical procedure. I wouldn't like to be specific here because issues are the Supreme Court.
Right.
But a lot of issues were raised in this country. And a lot similar things were also issues were raised during the Kenyan election. But many a times you don't find institutions actually allowing more room. We don't seem to exhaust pre-election issues before the elections itself. So that is, whenever that is carried along and you are not careful, it can lead to this type of questioning that we have.
But do we find the actors raising these issues that are unresolved before the elections? Sometimes we find the actors really not talking about them.
Oh, you find them talking, but you find them talking, you find them talking and talking about them. But sometimes, because certain actors might be talking from the opposition platform or from the government platform, unfortunately, we digest them within that simplification of that's government view or that is opposition view. But we don't look at it as that's Ghana's view we are projecting. There should be Ghana's view and not political parties' view during election time. The moment we do that, then we are losing the importance of even election itself. Because election is not just about party, it is about Ghana, it is about the citizenry. So if a party is actually raising objections to some issues, it is not the party itself, but raising these objections on behalf of the electorates. Whether government is raising an issue, they might equally be raising that on behalf of the electorates.
All right.